Love is a powerful thing. Love in action, I would submit, is the most powerful thing ever known in the history of the world. I felt it. Love in action has completely transformed me in times when even the circumstances that were causing my distress didn't change. Love in action can change my perspective on the world from everything's going against me to everything's going my way, even if the underlying circumstances haven't changed. I don't know if you have ever experienced this or you have ever felt this. Even when the thing doesn't go away, say you've lost someone, and then someone reaches out to you and you know you're being prayed for, and you know that someone is there for you, or you know a whole community is behind you and is reaching out and saying, we are here for you, we are here to protect you, we are here to help you through this. I know people who have had significant bouts with cancer, ones that they did not end up surviving physically from. But because of love in action of people and individuals and communities, these people said that they were healed. These people from the love in action started out in one place thinking things were absolutely distraught and gone, and they ended up seeing life with a completely different perspective, and things went from everything going against them to everything going their way, even though the underlying circumstance did not change. That is a lot. That kind of love in action is a lot about what this Christmas story is about. But it shows up in a place that I guess you wouldn't expect. So let's go ahead and turn to the scriptures and see what we have for us today. See, the passage seems super familiar, right? Super familiar. A lot of people could at least paraphrase this, maybe say it verbatim in terms of this Christmas story that we hear about when it starts with, in those days, a decree went out for Emperor Augustus, and then Joseph goes with Mary, and they go to get registered so that they can pay their taxes, and then all of a sudden it comes time for Mary to give birth, and there's nobody in the inn, and she gives birth anyway, right? Because that doesn't matter if you don't have a place to give birth. You're going to give birth if you're going to give birth, right? But there's something else going on in this story, and it's in the space where the Bible doesn't even talk about it. So here, in those days is a period of time just after John the Baptist was born. This is about 6 months after Mary left being at Elizabeth's. We'll get back to that. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. There, a little hyperbole there is the Roman world, making sure they were registering all of the Roman world. Joseph, who needed to go, Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea to the city of David called Bethlehem, because that's where he was from. Right? Mary and Mary's family is from Nazareth. Joseph is from Bethlehem, so he has to go over there. Now, here's the kicker. And we think nothing of this. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. Now, when we last left Mary last week, what had been going on was this. The angel Gabriel had come to her and said, hey, guess what? And after a long period of time of considering and talking about it and thinking about it and asking Gabriel some questions, finally said, sure, I'm in, I will do this, even though I know this is going to be a difficult thing that I'm going to have to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then she had to go do something that isn't written in here, but we know she had to do. And she had to go to the people who she loved and said, you're never going to guess what happened. You know, see, this angel came to me, and no, I didn't do anything, and no, I didn't have any relationships with another man, but I'm pregnant. And she had to go say that to Joseph. And we talked about this last week, how that probably didn't go well. And how do we know it didn't go well? Because in the gospel according to Matthew, it says it didn't go well because Joseph was going to cancel the marital contract and send her off. And his big righteous move was not to embarrass her and put into public shame, but just quietly do this divorce and let that take place. In addition, she had to tell her parents, and her parents were not happy. And the community began to find out, and there was a shame and stigma in all this. So she took off with haste, and went 60 to 80 miles, going like walking from the distance from here to Bridgeport or Stamford, walked that, took multiple days, to her relative Elizabeth so she could escape that. And then at the end of that time, it says, just before this story, it says, Mary remained with Elizabeth about 3 months. About 3 months, and then returned to her home. Then all of a sudden, you know, like sometimes the movies or a TV show uses this. What? All of a sudden, it's 6 months later, and 6 months later, they're bam, Joseph and Mary, they're together. He's bringing her on a trip. They're going over to get registered. She's pregnant. This is supposed to be a donkey. And so they're going, and they are on their way, and they're going to Bethlehem because they're supposed to, and then there's no room in the inn, but this is what that meant. There were no Motel 6s then. And where was Joseph going? Joseph was going home. Joseph was going from where he was, where most of his friends and family probably still were, and there was no room for him there. Why? Because he was with Mary, who was 9 months pregnant, and they were not married. Nobody, none of his friends, none of his family would take him in because that shame now is his. That shame now is his. So what happened? Let's go back to this 6 months. And I know it's not in the Bible. I know some people will be like, it's not in the Bible. You're just making all this stuff up. But I'm telling you, there are two ordained ministers here. My friend over there and Reverend Runes over here, David. And so if I go way too far afield, you just stand up and say, stop it, heathen, right? So what happened? Joseph came for Mary. Joseph came for Mary. Mary didn't know when she went to Elizabeth, she didn't know that Joseph had changed his mind. He might have had the angel come to him and told him and said, do not be afraid to do this. But you know what? I can tell you, when I've been asked by God to do something, you know what I did the first 3 times God asked? I said, nope. I said, nope. Right? Joseph did not immediately say yes and then go to Mary. Mary went with haste. Before Joseph could tell her, he changed his mind. He probably went to people and said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And his parents said, Right? And his friend said, if you do this, do you understand what's going to happen to you? Do you understand? Do not do this. But eventually, finally, he decided that he was going to, and he came for her. He came for Mary, and everything changed for her. She didn't stop being pregnant. It didn't stop being a situation where the community and other people saw her in shame and maybe spat at her, called her name, shunned her. The underlying condition did not change, but everything changed for her. Why was she with Joseph here? She didn't have to go be registered. She was from Nazareth. She wasn't even supposed to be with Joseph yet. She's still supposed to be living with her parents. Because after you get engaged, that marital contract kicks in, but until that year has gone by, you're supposed to not be in your future husband's home. You were supposed to still be with your parents. There was no reason for her to go anywhere unless she was not welcome there. Joseph came for her, and everything changed. And I wonder whether the sky looked a little bluer after Joseph came for her than when she had to flee to Elizabeth. I wonder whether the stars shined a little bit brighter because that happened. What ultimately happened is like Joseph cared for her actively as a verb. Joseph cared for her. He protected her from people who would have done things that now, because he's with her, they wouldn't do. He protected her because when they went to a new town, they would not necessarily know, because they wouldn't be flashing that they weren't married. Joseph, in loving action, sacrificed of himself for her, because what he did was diminish her shame, because at least she wasn't alone. And what was his sacrifice? It increased his shame. He was rejected by friends and family. He protected her. He sacrificed. He offered her grace. He offered her being heard, being believed. He loved her. And I'm not talking about emotional love. I don't know how they felt about each other at this point. I'm sure she appreciated it, but I don't know how, emotionally, when we think of love and romance, I don't know how they felt at this time. But he showed love in action, that verb form of love that changes everything. And I wonder whether the sky looked a little bluer, whether the stars looked a little brighter, because in these stories, what makes them so powerful for me and maybe for you is when they become relatable, when you can say, yeah, I can see myself in that. Yeah, I felt that emotion. I felt what Mary has felt. I felt someone saving me. And in my case, a lot of that times, that person is right here in this building right now. It's my wife, Linda. There are people in the past in different places who have come after me. And if you come after me, I'm not the one you have to worry about. Sir, don't do it. Right? And that doesn't mean she won't grab me by the scruff of the neck, not literally, but say, look, you need to get yourself in line. She does, but she's even more fierce when someone's coming after me. And when that happens, even though the thing happening to me, whether it is in my extended family or someone I have lost, things change when that love in action happens, and it's hard for me to describe. And when that happens, I decide I'm going to write a song for you. I hope it has meaning for you. A piece of paper was handed out to you. If you don't have it, please share with somebody. Gave out the lyrics, not so you're just staring at the lyrics, but sometimes I know in a live performance it's tough to hear what the actual words are. So that is there for you. I've seen days that never end, and I've seen some just rush on by. And there've been days that made me smile, and some that left me crying, going, why, oh why, oh why? And there are moments that steal my breath, like when she was about to walk down the aisle. And when I'm handed a day like today, I try to step back for a while. 'Cause the skies are blue white, and the moon was out last evening, and the stars were bright. I've been around long enough to say it may not last forever, but it's here today. And everything's going my way. For a moment I pause for the past, 'cause it made me who I am now. And as I'm walking I notice a tear, but it isn't dragging me down, 'cause the skies are blue and the clouds are white, and the moon was out last evening and the stars were bright. I've been around long enough to say it may not last forever, but it's here today. And everything's going, yeah, everything's going my way. And I know that a time may come, tries to drag my mind away, but the sun is out and the air is clear, so today is not that day. 'Cause the skies are blue and the clouds are white, and the moon was out last evening and the stars were bright. I've been around long enough to say it may not last forever, but it's here today. And everything's going. No, it may not last forever, but it's here today. And everything's going my way. Amen.